as long as you continue to believe that there's something wrong with you, these things will continue to work.
What is up, friends of the internet? Reporting live here with my baby dog. Today, we have a very exciting interview for you. I had the chance to sit down with Brionna Ned over at the Everyday Lawyer to chat all things legal when it comes to the coaching industry. Now, keep in mind, the information shared in this interview is not legal advice. Do not watch this video and then send it to your coach and say, well, the lawyer in Danielle's video said that blah, 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 blah. No. Okay, just wanted to clear that up before we got started. This is an excellent conversation, particularly for any of you who have found yourself in a coaching contract or program wondering,
how do I get out of this? Can I get out of this? Am I going to get sued?
Hopefully you'll get some answers. Brionna also does a really great job at sharing some cautionary advice, red flags to look out for when it comes to contracts, and literally just shares so much information that I don't know because I'm just a talking head on the internet. I am not a lawyer. I don't know anything legal, and I get lots of DMs of people asking me like, Danielle, what do I do? How do I get out of this contract? I don't know, but hopefully this episode helps. Enough talking from me. Shout out to my channel VIP members, as well as Tom, Suzanne, and Harrison in the billionaire tier. We're getting restless. Let's go ahead and jump right into the video.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm Brionna Ned. I'm the Everyday Lawyer, and my work is all about teaching people, like everyday people, what the law means. So I work with a lot of business owners and helping them like understand like the legal foundations of the law in their business. But I also work with a ton of people who like are employees trying to navigate that system, just like anything that basically you can think of where the information is gate kept behind like the big legal walls. I try to see what's behind the gate that can actually be pulled out and shared with the general public because it's something that an everyday person experiences a lot in the context of their business or in the context of their work. So that's what my focus is.
Awesome. And that's such important work, I think, for like, even I think from my perspective, I've been self employed for 6 years now. And
Mhm.
there's so much that you don't know when you're just starting out, or even when you're not, like even now, I'm sure there's tons that I don't know where it's just like, it can be really overwhelming, I think, to not know where to start when it comes to like the legal aspects of business. So super appreciate the work that you're doing. And I'm really excited to get into the conversation today specifically because I wanted to chat with you because you have experience, in the coaching space. Obviously, I spend a lot of time on YouTube snarking on what's happening in this space and just seeing a lot of really, for lack of a better term, like shady stuff going on. And I'd be curious to hear, I guess, if that's something you've come across, something you've dealt with in the work that you're doing, and what your thoughts are in regards to that.
Yeah, so I have come across it like a lot. I have a contract review service that's like a flat rate. So I have had actually a number of people come through, use that service for help to get out of contracts with business coaches that like they can't figure out how to get out of their programs, or like they signed up for the program, it's not what they thought, or it's not working for them. But then they go to look at like they've either sent an email to ask like, how do I discontinue? Or they go look at the like, contract for the program to see how they can discontinue, and immediately get freaked out because there's like a lot of really like intense and oppressive language in that contract, or the person's really dismissive of them. And also because like in the past, I've been a lawyer for 10 years now, but I was also a well-being educator and still am in like small circumstances. And so I have a lot of experience like as someone who's been a coach to entrepreneurs before, and what it looks like to do that ethically and what it looks like to do it in a not so ethical way. And one of the reasons that I actually stopped calling myself a coach when I was doing that work was because, maybe it was because of my background in the law where we have like pretty intense like ethical standards. I was like, what are the ethical standards here? Because I just like see a lot of things that feel deeply unethical to me, and I don't really want to be like associated with this industry.
It's funny you say that because that's something that comes up a lot is like people who are actively in the coaching space, like, what do I call myself? Because I don't want people to think that I am this person. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I really think ultimately, besides like what your title is, it comes down to the actions. What are you actually doing day to day that matters the most? But I digress. I would love to chat with you about this contract piece because I know even in the people that I've interviewed here on the channel, I've heard stories of individuals being in these coaching containers, as they call them, wanting to get out maybe, 6 months into a 12-month contract and then realizing they signed something that said you're obligated to pay until the end of the program, for example. So,
Hmm.
can you speak to any of those experiences sort of similar to that, or I guess what people could do if they find themselves in a situation like that?
The things some of these contracts say are really crazy. And what happens when you find yourself in that situation is you're playing a little bit of like a risk assessment slash gambling game where you have to sort of assess like, am I like going to be worth this person's time, space, energy, and money to like go after if I break this contract? That's kind of like what it always comes down to is like, do I think that if I like kind of like go away quietly into the night and like cancel the credit card that's like paying if it's like a monthly installment, if I just like cancel the credit card and log out of whatever like platform this coaching program is on, am I worth the like this person's time, energy, and money to like try to enforce this contract against me? That's really the question that you're asking. And because what so many people I think don't understand about the law and how it translates into contracts is like there's what things say and then there's the power dynamics behind it. And so there are times like when what the law or the contract says really matters because the power dynamic is such that the person has enough money or enough influence or whatever to make the law matter, right? And so that's kind of what you're assessing is like, is it worth it to them to make the law matter if I kind of just like go away quietly into the night? Or like, are they just going to be like, whatever, that's annoying, but like, I'm not going to make a thing out of it because they are not making a thing out of it. And by they are not making a thing out of it, I mean, you maybe are not like screaming about it on the internet about like how unethical they are. And you're just kind of like going your own separate way quietly, right? But if you do want to scream about it on the internet, then you have to think about it, right? Because the other thing besides money that matters in terms of power dynamics is influence. And what you have as a customer essentially is you have the ability to influence. You can, social media in a lot of ways is like the great democratizer. So you can go online and be like, this is really shady. This is what's happening. And I know from watching some of your interviews that people have done exactly that. And then more people in the program have like chimed in and been like, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. This happened to me. And then the person has like a mini nightmare on their hands. So it's a bit of like, what is your risk assessment? And then what is your like time, space, energy, capacity to deal with this, right? Because you can escalate, you can file things like with the FTC, the Better Business Bureau, you can do all of those things. You can hire an attorney, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. You can like send nasty emails back and forth if that feels good to you. But it's all about like, what do you want at the end of the day? And also, what do you have the time, space, and energy for as you're thinking about like just getting out of the arrangement generally?
And I think that that piece can often be underestimated, especially if you do decide to like go public with the experience, because as bad as your experience might be, or as bad as a handful of other people's experience might be, There's also the devout followers of whoever that person is that are going to be there to back them up. And I know even in the content that I make, every day I'm getting comments from people telling me that I'm a dumb idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about and whatever. And it's like there is like an element of like your own mental health and protection that you have to be prepared to defend if you're going to choose to go that route. Like aside from the whole legal aspect, I think that that's something that gets overlooked as well.
Yeah, it does get overlooked. And, like, I think the huge downside of the information age is so often people are interested in monologues and not so much dialogues. So people are never going to come and like interact with what you're saying with questions. They're always going to like tell you, like, you're a dumb person and like, why don't you go jump off a cliff and off yourself because the world would be better without you? And you're like, wow, I was just saying that like I don't agree that avocado toast is the best breakfast. Like it's like be as inconsequential as that.
It's not that deep.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we take this back to the conversation around contracts, I guess, aside from, okay, I've already been in the program and it didn't turn out the way I wanted. You've kind of touched on that. I'd be curious if you could share, red flags or indicators if I'm about to sign a contract. Like, what should I be looking out for inside these programs to like avoid?
Yeah. So, number one, I have a pretty hard and fast rule around don't work with people who have non disparagement clauses in their contracts. You would be amazed how many of these, like, business scammy coaches have in their contracts, like, you can't talk bad about me in the public or like this program. And that to me is like the biggest red flag of them all. Like, if they can't handle like constructive criticism or just like have their customers speak to their experiences, if they weren't 100% positive, then they just don't have it, quite honestly. I first of all, I'm like, you just don't believe in what you're selling, like full stop. If you have a non-disparagement clause, if you believe in what you're selling, you wouldn't need that. You would want to hear that kind of feedback to make the program better. That's how I think about it from like a business perspective. But from just like a legal perspective, non-disparagement clauses are like, when someone gets a brand deal and is working with a big brand, the brand will have a non-disparagement clause like for that influencer, because obviously you don't want to pay someone to like promote your product and then, in the next video they're like, oh, well, this company is like totally sucky or the people here are really crappy. Like that negates the whole purpose of the agreement. That is why non-disparagement clauses exist. They are not here to keep customers from speaking out about their experience with a service or a product or a company. That would be like if, you went to your favorite clothing store and as part of purchasing the clothes, they made you sign a non-disparagement agreement. And like you couldn't go online and say like, oh, these jeans actually really suck. That's the effect. And I really need people to understand that.
Yeah. And I think that the issue, again, coming back to like my initial statement, is like there's so much you don't know. If you're not a lawyer, you don't know. So you're just like, non-disparagement. Maybe I Google it. Oh, whatever. That's not a big deal. And you don't think about, I think, the implications of something like that. And so I appreciate you for bringing that up, because that is something that I've heard, again, in the conversations I've had, is people not reading the contract and then wanting to say something after the fact and realizing like, oh shit, like I signed this thing and I'm not allowed to share my experience.
Yeah, the contract will like often tells a big story. Like how people choose to, write a contract. What I teach in my work is that a contract is an opportunity to define the working relationship. And so how people approach a contract, like if it's really oppressive, the working relationship is going to be oppressive. Like that is literally their intention, right? And so in addition to non-disparagement clauses, the other thing that I've seen that can be really, really tricky, and why it's actually important to like slow down, make sure you actually have the space from like a nervous system perspective to like sit down and really comprehend the contract, even if it means like reading a little part of it, stepping away, coming back, reading another part of it, stepping away. whatever it is that like you can maximize essentially your executive function while you're reading it. It's important because I've seen in a lot of these contracts when they talk about termination or how you're going to end the contract or how you're going to like end your coaching agreement or leave these containers, there's a termination clause for them, and that often looks like it's really easy. Like I've had people say like, I swear I checked this and it looked like it was really simple, and that's why I decided to say yes to the program despite maybe I was like a little hesitant. And but it was only for them. So it said something like termination like for the coach. And it says termination, but then it starts like coach or like name of company can end this agreement like at any time for any reason at all. And it seems like, oh, termination's easy, but it only applies to them. And then somewhere in like, I've seen it literally in like a miscellaneous part of the contract, like at the very end, where it's like, you know, you put all the basic terms that are kind of in every contract. And stuck in the middle of that is like the how you as the client can end the contract. And it's like, you as the client, if you want to end it, you have to like either you can end it or you can't get a refund if you had to pay everything up front, or you can end it but you have to pay what is effectively known in the law as a liquidated damages clause, which is essentially like if you leave the contract early then you have to pay a penalty. And so those are the things that I see, but they're not under like the right like headline in the contract. They're like jammed in some other part of the contract where it's easy for you to miss. So I always tell people when you're looking, like, make sure you pay attention to how you specifically can end the contract, not how the coach ends it, but how you specifically like get out of this coaching container, stop paying money. Like, can you leave at free will, or are there consequences to you leaving?
Good. Yeah, that's a really important piece. And then I guess the implication of that. So if I've signed this contract not realizing that it had this like liquidation clause or whatever, the implication of that is what you spoke to earlier. That's when I would have to
Yeah,
evaluate the risk.
exactly. And you know, like I always say this because like in reality, like the way that case law works is those types of like consequences or penalties for leaving a contract early are like hard to enforce. And like the reality is like, are you gonna go to court over this contract that like maybe is personally to you like a lot of money, but like in the eyes of a court and how much it costs to like hire a lawyer and do all those things is maybe like not worth it. So that's why I say I'm like, what it's really about is like, where are you like in your time, space, and energy? What's the most important to you? And then from their point of view, like, does it seem like they're the kind of person that like has the time, space, energy, and money to like come after you over something so stupid when maybe the most that they could get back is like $5,000 or $6,000?
Yeah, that's something I've always wondered. And again, just because it's come up in my DMs and conversations I've had, is people like, what are the actual, like, what are the repercussions if I just decide to cancel my credit card or stop paying? Anything like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to hear the actual perspective because like I can sit here and speculate all day what I think might happen, but
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think, you know, one of the things for me about like being able to like be a legal education platform is just like giving people the practical piece, because like the law is like very gray. So when you actually like hire a lawyer and like, you know, form an attorney and client relationship and like formalize all those things, like they're going to get into the nitty gritty and the gray area, and they're going to be practical with you, but they're going to kind of like get deep into the like gray stuff. And you just have to think about like practically, is that money that you have to spend for the time that they spend like looking up this case law and like writing maybe this demand letter and all of those things. There's like a whole process to starting, you know, a lawsuit. that is not free or cheap sometimes.
Yeah, so I guess maybe just for curiosity's sake, I would be curious to know, like, let's say I'm in this contract, I decide 6 months in, I'm gonna cancel, I ghost this coach. What could potentially happen? Worst case scenario. Would I be served with like a letter? Like, how does that work?
I think what can happen is like if the person decides that they're going to try to like scare you into
Yeah.
continuing paying them, right? Like they'll probably send you like a nasty email. If they want to stay down that route, then they might have a lawyer send you a nasty email or a letter on like law firm letterhead that's like a nasty email that's like, you're in breach of contract, you if you keep going down this road and like you don't fix it and pay what you owe, like you're going to owe this person a lot of money and like we will see you in court, is kind of what a demand letter is. And if they want to keep going down that route, it depends on how much money is at stake. Like a lot of this stuff would end up in like what's called small claims court, or if the person has in the contract like an arbitration clause, it might go to arbitration, which is just like private court. Or like, we have seen enough where it's like there are some people that just like choose the road of like harassing you. And like, every place they can find you, like they're emailing you, they're commenting on your social media and like that kind of thing, right? Like they feel insulted, and so they actually take the route of trying to go after your like public reputation.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. Or they'll like send their minions of
Yes.
like, Sally betrayed me, everyone go after her. Here's her
Yeah,
Instagram handle.
exactly.
I just think that that's an important piece because I think that there's obviously like a lot of fear in these people who decide that like this relationship isn't right for them. And so just to kind of know what could potentially, maybe not likely, but could happen is just an important piece to touch on as well.
Yeah. I mean, my goal, right, is like I'm like, let's prevent this as
Yeah.
much as possible, right? Like those are two contract things, like non-disparagement and then like the shady termination for them and termination for you. And those two things are really wildly different. And the third, I think, when you think about contracts as like a way to define the working relationship, is how you pay them generally. Like some of these programs are like, this is a $9,000 program and you need to pay it all up front. That to me is like a red flag. There's no reason that can't be like monthly payments, right? For like a 6 or 12 month program, that's $9,000. And similarly, I also think it's a red flag if like it's cheaper if you pay upfront, and then if you want to do a monthly plan it's actually more expensive, so it's just like penalizing you for being poor. Like I want people to understand that contracts can be an indicator of someone's values, and you can sometimes look at a contract, get a sense of people's values, and if they're not matching yours, then it's probably not a good fit. Like you don't want to learn from someone who doesn't necessarily share your values. And people, it's the quote, when people tell you who they are, believe them. People tell you a lot about who they are in a contract and what they value and what is important to them.
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate you for bringing that up because this is something that I talk about a lot in my content. And I know that some people disagree, but I am with you when it's like, if my program's $5,000, but I put you on a 5 month payment plan and now you're paying me $6,000 or $7,000, to me, that's gross. And some
Yeah.
people are like, well, no, you're paying for, the convenience, the favor of, being able to pay in full. Like, no, if you're giving me a long-term service, there's no reason why I can't pay in the long term as well because you haven't
Yeah.
provided the service.
Yeah. Like you're not a credit card company. Like
Exactly. And
you're
I've
not
heard
charging me interest because like it's
exactly.
crazy to charge me interest for your service. Like you just are not a credit card company. Like if it's $5,000, it's $5,000. Like I should not be penalized as a customer. Like that is the price that you decided on. And I am not interested in paying you interest because I don't casually have $5,000 on hand just to like hand over to you today.
And the service is the same. Like
The
if
service is the same.
I'm getting whatever, my 6-month program, I get my 1 monthly call. So I still get those 6 calls. Why does it matter if you're getting paid when I have the call or you're getting paid 6 months before I have the call? Honestly, as a service provider myself, I would prefer you to be on a payment plan so I have consistent income and I'm not
That's
making all my
correct.
money at once.
Yes, I completely agree. That is a huge pet peeve of mine. And I just think it's like, again, another opportunity to just like assess values. Anyone who has plans like that, I'm immediately like, yeah, I'm just not interested.
Yeah, I would be curious to know like who started this because they're all doing it. So who decided that this was how it was going to go?
Yeah,
Nobody's questioning it.
yeah, I mean, it's again one of those strategies, and I know we had like compared notes on this. It's like one of those strategies of like capitalism slash consumerism where it's like you essentially like bait people into a deal. And like people are already like you've already put them in a scarcity mindset. You've already like living in a capitalist society makes you feel like you're not capable already, which opens you up to marketing. Like we have a whole marketing industry that's based on making people feel even more incapable than capitalism already makes them feel. So you come and your base level is like, I'm not really a capable person. And then these marketing tactics come in and they reinforce that base belief. And they say, you're right, you are not capable. And I am here because you're not capable and you can't trust your instincts. You can't trust that you like know how to do this business thing or that business thing or whatever. And so that means that you have to trust me because I've actually figured it out. And so, and so what I'm telling you is I'm capable and you're not. And if you want access to my capableness to help you become more capable, that's right. That's what we're selling. For these, that's what these people are selling. Here's for a limited time, or you can get it for as a deal or for on the cheap if you pay all of it up front. So like I'm capable, I'm gonna help you become like more capable. And like here's a discount if you pay all up front. Or if you're so incapable that you can't pay me all up front, then I'm gonna charge you a fee for your like inability to be capable. And so you're gonna pay more, but like over time, because like I sort of pity you, but not really.
It's very, very interesting. And I think it ties into this conversation that I've had many times of like the incessant perceived need for continuous mentorship when you're in the coaching space of like
Mhm.
the only way you will succeed in business is if you pay me all your money and I tell you all my secrets about how I'm going to help you be successful. Whether or not that's true, it really reinforces things like this where it's like, well, I'm not going to be successful if I don't pay Sarah Jane, to coach me. So I might as well sign up on her payment plan because I don't want to fail. And I think it's like, it's very scary to think about how quickly someone can get caught up in that cycle of believing all of these things as fact. And I don't know if you have thoughts on that of like how that comes to happen. I know I've spoken about it a lot on my channel, but to me it's scary to think about how someone can end up in a position where they only see that as the way out.
Yeah, I think that, I was just having a conversation about this with a friend of mine a few weeks ago. And the only way that predatory marketing works is if you continue to believe that there's something wrong with you. As long as you believe that there's something wrong with you, predatory marketing is always going to have some sort of effect on you. It's always going to feel alluring because like the undertone of it is like we can fix that thing that's wrong with you. And it sort of doesn't matter what it's about, but particularly in entrepreneurship, right? It's like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm not a good writer. So like you buy that like crazy like marketing, copywriting or whatever core, like, right? Whatever you think like there's something wrong with you or like you have this weakness that like you're just never going to be able to get over, and it's going to inhibit you from ever being like successful or the kind of person that you want to be or build the kind of business that you want to have. As long as you continue to hold that core belief that like truly capitalism like ingrains in us from like the second we start breathing, then like it's always going to have an impact on you. You're always going to kind of have an unstable or insecure connection to your instincts. Because the other thing that I want to say is like, whenever people come to me and trying to figure out what the heck these contracts say and how to get out of them, is they always say I knew it. They always say like I had a feeling. And so this is the other thing that I want to say is that contracts are not here to save you. They're not going to protect you ever from something bad happening, because a bad actor is a bad actor. And so the more that you understand in your business dealings, which includes hiring a business coach, that your instincts are the thing that are going to protect you, not the contract, and that you have to actually trust what your instincts are telling you. Like if for anyone out there that knows anything about the nervous system, if you're making the decision and like you have a lot of tension, you're doing these discovery calls and you feel nervous, you feel scared to ask questions, like that is not a good sign. You don't want to work with someone who makes your nervous system contract. Especially, right, if they're these people that are going to be like, you're going to expand into a 7-figure business. Like, well, actually, when you're talking to them, like you're literally in contraction. So how, even if just in an intro call, you're like experiencing that kind of nervous system response to them, do you think that you're suddenly going to like be able to open up and blossom in a 12-month container with them? Or are you going to be what so many people on your channel have spoken to and what I've spoken to customers about is like, are you going to feel like you're walking on eggshells the entire time that you're inside this container? There's a lot of information that our instincts and our body give us, and we've been taught to overlook those things or ignore those things because we're told that there's something wrong with us. And by being told that, it means like there's something wrong with you, which means you can't trust those things you call your instincts. Like, but you can, so you should trust mine.
It's
Says the
very
predatory
true though.
marketer.
Exactly. And I actually like listening to you share this brings up a memory that I must have like suppressed in my brain of one of the very first sales calls I ever got on with like a mentor that I was looking at hiring. And exactly what you were just speaking to. I remember her being like, well, Danielle, if you want to be successful, you have to change the name of your business to this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this. And I remember sitting there being like, but I don't want to do any of that. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then at the end, of course, it's like, and the program's $6,500 US. I'm in Canada, so that's like $9,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I never ended up, like, I ended up ghosting her because I was just like, something about this doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, in retrospect, I think you're totally right. If I had signed up with her, that would have been my experience through the program of like, I'm the boss. I know everything. Do what I say. And if you fail, guess what? It's your fault. Like, you didn't mindset hard enough. You didn't listen to what I told you. And so it is really, truly wild how much we actually know just from listening to ourselves and listening to how we feel when we're in someone else's energy or like on a call with someone or whatever that is. Does that person make you feel safe? Do you feel like your thoughts are being heard and listened to? I think those are like such simple but so important pieces of advice that when we're caught up in this desperate need to find a solution to whatever our problem is, we can forget that the answer is really that simple.
Yeah. And I think, like one of the things that can really happen is those discovery calls, it's like, blood in the water and they are the shark. Like they're just trying to get a yes from you so that they can immediately send you, a checkout thing. And then like the second you say yes, they're banking on you feeling too guilty to back out. That is like the truth of the matter is like they're banking on you feeling too guilty to back out and like reluctantly giving over your credit card information, like reluctantly making this payment. And it's like, those of us who speak to this, it's not like we haven't all been there. Like we've all been there and had these experiences. The one I had by some true act of God, like partway through the program, I was like, I actually don't want to continue. And the person did refunds. And so they refunded me the part of the program that I hadn't done yet. But that was the only like positive experience. Like the discovery call made me just as nervous. I felt like just as scared. And I said yes to a program with information that I already knew 100% of. Like none of it was new. Like I had already learned it. Um, and then the other thing I want to speak to is upsells. So, having been a co owner of a corporate well being company in the past, one of the reasons I left that company was that I had a huge conflict of values with my co owner, which was that, you know, we were working with teams at companies and we would like pitch them some workshops and then we would pitch them some more workshops. And we had this one client where it was like, we had done so much work with them that like their management team, like there would be the most basic conflict at work and their management team would call us like in a panic. And I was like, oh, I was like, so now we have a codependent relationship with these people. Like, how did we get here? Like, this is not where I want to be. Like, I would have thought we would have taught you tools on conflict transformation for you to like handle this small thing that involves like 3 people and not your whole team, like yourself. And that's where I really became conscious of upsells because I had been following my co-owner's lead where it was like, okay, what can we sell them next to like grow, you know, our wallet with this person and essentially keep telling them like they're incapable. And I hadn't really picked up on, you know, that whole marketing tactic until we kept getting these panic calls. And I actually was like, I don't agree with this because at what point are they just going to become self-sufficient? And then I started to look around like in the well-being and coaching industry and I saw that like there are not a lot of coaches that like say they believe in your ability to become self-sufficient. So once you've mastered one thing, they're going to upsell you and say, "Oh, you're more capable, but you're still not quite capable and that's why you need this next program," right? As someone who like has been involved in like accidentally essentially doing that and was like, whoa, this does not work at all. That's also another thing is like, does this person just have a bunch of programs where they're just going to keep upselling you to the things that like cost more and more and more and more money? Or is there a point in time where they're like, congrats, you did it. That's all I have to offer you. And like, go do your thing. You're going to be great.
Exactly. And that's a huge piece that ties back into this conversation of like mentorship forever. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's like you literally get put into this space where you believe the narrative that like that next offer on the ladder is going to be the thing that takes me to the next level. And then I need to go to the next one and the next one. And I think it can be so hard if you don't have the ability to kind of like self-reflect or look at your situation from like a third party perspective, or you don't have someone outside of the coach giving you feedback. It can be hard to notice that that's what's happening to you, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Which again is why I always say it's like if as long as you continue to believe that there's something wrong with you, these things will continue to work. Like eventually you should outgrow someone's services. Like they should make sense. Like I have a marketing coach who I love, like adore the way she approaches marketing. It really has supported my business. And I'm still on her email list, but I have no interest in her offers. I was really interested in them for 2 years for like what they taught me, and now like they don't really do anything for me anymore because like I've got the basic gist of what she teaches.
And that's how
And
it should be.
yeah, like I'm not like it doesn't make sense for me to continue to put myself in her containers to hear, you know, the same kind of messaging perhaps in a different context again. That's not to say that like she's aggressively marketing or making you feel like you don't have it. She's not doing that. It's just to say that like I'm able to recognize that like I reached capacity on her stuff. Like she doesn't have anything left to teach me anymore. And she's also not sending me emails that are saying like you'll never stop learning from me.
It's so true though. Like I create a lot of free content on TikTok talking about like how to start a business in Canada. I've been doing that for 4 years and for me, it's very repetitive at this point because I'm talking about the same 5 things over and over again. If you were to watch my content still every day 4 years later, I would be asking what's wrong with you. Like, you
Yeah,
should know by now and not need to be watching my TikTok videos anymore because you understand the difference between sales tax and income tax at this point, hopefully. Like, you know what
yeah,
I mean? It's
yeah.
like when you think about it from that perspective, it is truly so wild to not see, like, we are growing as people, as business owners, whatever. There should come a time when we're ready to move on. And maybe that looks like moving on to a different mentor. If you are someone that like mentorship is your thing and you want that accountability and that support, then that's fine. But if you're in a relationship, we'll call it, with someone who is telling you that you need to be dependent on them in order to be successful, I think for me, that's when it's like, okay, this is a red flag.
Hmm. Yeah, like where they are intentionally fostering a
Exactly.
codependent relationship and then pair that, right, getting back to the law, with creating a contract that makes it feel like it's very difficult to get out of that relationship. That's
100%.
that's like the one and the two. And like when those things are shaking hands, like you need to run the opposite direction.
Exactly. Or call you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this. This has been really great. Do you have any like last parting words of wisdom, advice, things that you're like, if I could share with people one thing that they should know, what is it?
You know what? What I will share is it's the information age. And so anything available inside of a supposed container is probably available on the internet. A container is a place where someone has essentially done the research, theoretically developed the expertise and distilled information down that's already publicly available. And so I just want you to have that in the back of your head as you're just like assessing whether you want to be in this container or that container. And of course, people can put like valuable spins on things. They can like present it to you in a way that like really works for your brain, that fires off light bulbs for you. But at the end of the day, we're in the information age and people are just distilling down public information in a way that's unique to them, but it's still probably public information in a book somewhere, on a website somewhere. And so before you sign on to these large projects, I just encourage you to like maybe do a search for books on the topic.
I love that. Thank you so much for that beautiful piece of advice. And thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching. I have all of Brianna's information linked down below. I will also link the entire playlist of interviews I've done on this channel if you're interested in hearing from other people who have gotten scammed in the coaching industry. Okay, this dog needs to go on the floor. Oh, no. That's going to be it for today's video. If you're interested in being interviewed here on the channel, the link to the form where you can submit your story, qualifications, whatever you want to tell me is in the description of this video. That's going to be it for today's video. I will leave you on screen here with an interview I did last month featuring a woman who was told that she could grow her art business to multiple six figures, but then found out the only way to do that would be to become a coach, coaching other people how to grow their art businesses to multiple six figures. It's a doozy. Take care, comb your hair. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.